Hey, have you ever seen someone act completely fine, like nothing affected them, but deep down, you could feel they were already attached? Like, they don't say anything, they don't show it, they don't chase, but something about the way they look at you, the way they stay, the way they don't fully leave, it tells a different story. Hi, I'm Aurora, and today we're talking about something a lot of people won't admit: the zodiac signs who get attached but pretend they're completely fine. And this one is tricky, because these aren't the people who openly show emotions. They don't beg, they don't cling, they don't make it obvious. They act calm, controlled, unbothered. But inside, it's a completely different story. And if you've ever dealt with someone like this, you know exactly how confusing it can be. Because you start asking yourself, do they care or not? Am I the only one feeling this? Stay with me, because once you understand this pattern, you'll never see these signs the same way again. And before we get into it, I want to know something. What's your sign? Drop it in the comments. I always check, especially the early ones. And quick thing, yesterday's video was about the signs who pretend they don't care. This one, it goes even deeper. So watch this first, and then go check that one after, because together, they connect in a way that's honestly kind of eye-opening. All right, let's get into this, because the first sign on this list doesn't just get attached, they feel way more than they'll ever admit. Let's start. All right, let's start with a sign that, honestly, most people underestimate when it comes to attachment. Scorpio. Now, Scorpio doesn't look like the type to get attached easily. In fact, they often come across as the opposite: detached, in control, almost untouchable, like they always have the upper hand emotionally. But here's what most people don't realize. When Scorpio connects with someone, it's never surface level. They don't do light feelings. They don't do casual emotions. When they feel something, they feel it deeply, intensely. But they don't show it right away. Instead, they pull back. They observe. They analyze. They try to understand what they're feeling before they ever let it show. And while they're doing that, to the outside world, it looks like nothing is happening, like they're completely fine. But inside, they're already attached. And here's where it gets complicated. Scorpio doesn't like vulnerability. They don't like giving someone the power to hurt them. So instead of expressing what they feel, they protect it. They hide it. They act like it doesn't affect them, even when it clearly does. And if you've ever dealt with a Scorpio like this, you've probably felt it. That intensity, that presence, that unspoken connection. But at the same time, this distance, like they're there, but not fully. And that's not because they don't care. It's because they care too much. So they pretend they're fine. They stay composed. They don't chase. But emotionally, they're already deeper than they'll ever admit. Now, Scorpio hides attachment through intensity and control. But the next sign, they do something very different. They don't hide it with intensity, they hide it with independence. And this one can make you question everything. Aquarius. Now this one is confusing in a completely different way. Because Aquarius doesn't just hide attachment, they make it look like it doesn't exist at all. They seem independent, free, detached, like they don't need anyone. Like they can walk away at any moment and be perfectly fine. And honestly, most people believe that. But here's what's really happening. Aquarius feels things deeply, just not in a way that's obvious. When they start getting attached, they don't move closer. They actually do the opposite. They create space. They step back. They slow down. They become harder to read. And to anyone on the outside, that looks like disinterest, like they're pulling away, like they don't care enough to stay. But that's not the truth. Aquarius doesn't like losing control of themselves. And strong emotions, they can feel overwhelming. So instead of diving into what they feel, they try to understand it first. They analyze, they question, they try to make sense of it. And while they're doing that, they detach just enough to not feel consumed by it. But here's the part that most people miss. That distance, it's not a lack of feeling, it's protection. Because when Aquarius really connects with someone, it matters more than they'll ever say. They just don't express it in the way people expect. They won't always chase, they won't always reassure, they won't always show it clearly, but they stay. And that's the sign. Because if an Aquarius is still there, still responding, still present in their own way, they're already more attached than they'll admit. Now, Scorpio hides attachment through intensity. Aquarius hides it through distance. But the next sign? They hide it in a way that almost no one notices. Because instead of pulling away or becoming intense, they act like everything is completely normal, even when it's not. Capricorn. Now, this one is a lot harder to read than people expect, because Capricorn doesn't show attachment in obvious ways. They don't become overly emotional. They don't suddenly act different. They don't lose control. In fact, they look exactly the same. Calm, focused, composed, like nothing has changed. But that's exactly why people miss it. Because when Capricorn starts getting attached, they don't express it emotionally. They express it through presence. They stay. They show up. They make space for you in their life without making a big deal about it. And if you're not paying attention, you might think, they're just being normal. But for Capricorn, that is the sign. Because they don't invest time, energy, or consistency in something that doesn't matter to them. So if they're there, truly there, they're already attached, even if they never say it. And here's where it gets deeper. Capricorn doesn't like emotional exposure. They don't like feeling vulnerable. They don't like losing control over themselves. So instead of opening up, they contain what they feel. They manage it. They organize it. They keep it structured. And that makes them look distant, even when they're not, because inside, they're processing everything. They're thinking about you. They're considering what this connection means. They're deciding how far they're willing to go. But they won't rush it. They won't say things too early, and they definitely won't act impulsively. So while everything seems calm on the surface, there's actually a lot happening underneath. And most people, they don't see it. They assume there's nothing there, when in reality, Capricorn is just choosing to move slowly, instead of emotionally. And if you've ever been in this situation, you know how confusing that can be. Because you feel their presence, you see their consistency, but you don't hear the words. And that makes you question everything. But the truth is, Capricorn doesn't attach loudly. They attach quietly, through time, through actions, through staying when they don't have to. Now, Scorpio hides it through intensity, Aquarius hides it through distance, Capricorn hides it through control. But the last sign on this list, they do something even more subtle. They don't pull away, they don't stay neutral, they don't stay fully controlled. They overthink, they analyze, they feel and question at the same time. And most people never realize how attached they actually are. Virgo. Now this one is the quietest of all. Because Virgo doesn't show attachment in obvious ways, and they don't hide it in dramatic ways either, they make it invisible. On the outside, everything looks normal. They talk the same, they act the same, they keep things light, like nothing has really changed. But inside, it's completely different, because when Virgo starts getting attached, their mind becomes active, very active. They think about everything, every word, every interaction, every detail, trying to understand what this means, where it's going, and if it's safe. Because for Virgo, attachment isn't just emotional, it's mental. They need to understand what they feel before they allow themselves to fully experience it. And that creates something very subtle. They stay close, but cautious. They feel deeply, but quietly. They care, but without making it obvious. And sometimes, they overthink so much that instead of moving forward, they stay exactly where they are. Not because they don't want more, but because they're trying to make sure it's right. And to anyone on the outside, it looks like hesitation, like uncertainty, like they're not that invested. But the truth is, they're already attached. They just haven't allowed themselves to fully act on it yet. And this is where people get it wrong. Because Virgo doesn't show attachment through intensity or distance or control. They show it through attention, through noticing the small things, through remembering details, through caring in ways that don't always get noticed. But if you don't understand that language, you might miss it completely and walk away thinking there was nothing there, when in reality, there was more than enough. So when you look at all of this together, you start to see the pattern. Some people don't show attachment, not because they don't feel it, but because they experience it differently. Scorpio feels deeply, but hides it behind control. Aquarius feels strongly, but protects it with distance. Capricorn feels steadily, but expresses it through actions. Virgo feels intensely, but processes it quietly. And if you don't understand that, it's easy to misread them, to think they don't care, to assume they're not invested, when in reality, they might already be more attached than you think. And maybe this explains something you've been feeling for a while. Because sometimes, it's not that someone didn't care, it's just they didn't show it in a way you could understand. They stayed quiet. They acted normal. They didn't chase. They didn't open up. They didn't say what you were hoping to hear. And that made you question everything. But now, you see it differently. Because not everyone expresses attachment the same way. Some people feel deeply and say nothing. And honestly, that's where most misunderstandings begin, not from lack of feeling, but from lack of clarity. So I want to ask you something. Which one of these signs made you stop for a second? Was it you, or someone you've been trying to understand? Tell me in the comments. I read more than you think. And if this video made something click for you, save it. Because later, when things start making more sense, you might want to come back to this moment. And by the way, there's another video on the channel right now about the signs who pretend they don't care. If this one hit you, you should watch that next. They connect in a way that's honestly kind of eye-opening. I'll be here again tomorrow with something else you probably didn't know you needed to hear. So, stay close. See you in the next one.